And yeah, a quickie, as they like to call it. Unfortunately for Gamer Legion, right, the way they T-side works in general, right, is we land a lot in some of these early games, early round plays, right, opening idea. If it doesn't work, if they can't end the round quickly, that's where they tend to struggle a little bit, right? If the round extends itself, they have to play the late round, like that's where they start lacking some coordination. That's where they can get outplayed by some of these better teams, and I think we saw a lot of that here on the first.
Yeah, it was quite clear to see what they wanted in that T-side. You know, tried to play fast-paced Counter-Strike. A couple of banana takes didn't go their way, which we'll dive into later. A lot of utility damage coming from the side of Na'Vi, not necessarily because Na'Vi did anything in particular to do it. It's more so the game Legion just didn't respect the fact that there's going to be nades thrown down towards middle in the beginning of the round. Round 8 was a great example to me where they run up, you know, they decide to rush middle and rush quad. They tie the team to more than 200 damage in grenades within the first 10 seconds of the round. And at that point, you can argue, yeah, sure, good on Na'Vi for throwing the grenades. More so for Gamer Legion, respect what they said first. Maybe just slow down a little bit and then you can rush a little bit of couple of seconds delayed instead of losing the round from the first 10 seconds.
But I think it comes down to good preparation from Na'Vi and understanding like how Gamer Legion likes to play on the T side. And we dive into some of the examples here right now to talk about the specific round. We had one early in the first half, right? We won the reset round. Na'Vi was up to 0. They lose the first round. Like after that, we go back to it. We're going to see from Gamer Legion this smoke for top mid. Now this is sometimes used just, you know, as a bait, really, but they did want to play from it. You can see the reaction from that one incendiary. You always see that almost, but the second one, that's kind of unusual. So they're really committing. Then a smoke comes in after that. So they know Gamer Legion wants to play fast, right? So this blockade, you can see, forces them back. They didn't fight for banana control, so Na'Vi got all of that. You see Makazi has it. You know, Alexi is going to come over, throwing an extra smoke. So now Gamer Legion needs to, you know, go to plan B, right? Make some adjustments. You can see Wonderful on his way to B with the AWP. Alexi, they make that swap. So another layer that now Gamer Legion maybe doesn't expect that they have to deal with. Great job in the mid round actually for them to clear these angles, not lose any players, good protocols for Gamer Legion to chase them back, but you need to look at the time as well. This is where teams like Na'Vi, right, like separate themselves from maybe a team like Gamer Legion. Like everything that they're doing is fine, but look at how much time is passing, how long it took them to do all these things, and Makaze still has some utility left. Wonderful is there with the AWP, and you will see some of that counter utility come in as these B hit also comes in. One miss smoke that didn't really matter all that much, but Wonderful gets a shot off before the smoke. Brooms gets a kill. Now they're pushing to a CT smoke. He breaks their timing for the flashes, right? Like this execution isn't at all what Gamer Legion intended. Because of how Na'Vi played in the early round, they had some extra utility and they're able to, even though the bomb gets planted, have a pretty comfortable lead.
Yeah, it's a great round that also had a consequence for Gamer Legion later down the route, you know, because playing slow Counter-Strike against a team like Na'Vi, that's not what you want to do if you're Gamer Legion. And then, as I said, you know, round 8, you decide to rush middle and take a lot of utility damage. If you know they try to up the pace of that T-side, and that's not working out either. So it's one of those scenarios where I get the understanding from Gamer Legion. I understand what they want to do, I understand how they're playing. You said it great. It's not like they're making glaring mistakes in this round. They're actually trying to take banana control. They're using the utility in order to flush off Wonderful and push it back towards goals. But there's just a difference between these two teams in understanding of the game and individual skill level in order to close out those rounds.
I think the problem is, like, when you play like this, have a lot of these set calls from the get-go, right? Like, you start getting into this trap maybe of, okay, now we have to break. Now you're getting too much into reading what your opponents are going to do. So Jake was talking a lot about round 8, doesn't play back, and that's where round 9, they go right back through it. And it worked. They get the opening kill, Na'Vi saves. What happens then? Na'Vi takes the timeout, right? And we have the following round ready as well. So Gamer Legion is really trying to go fast a lot, right? Like they just wanted to get through, win a round by doing that. They can maybe condition Na'Vi to stop playing 3B. So when Bolt takes a timeout, Gamer Legion maybe thinks, okay, after the timeout, they're going to switch. They're not going to play 3B anymore. But Na'Vi is just too smart for that, right? It's another 3B opening. It's Alexi with the HE doing his best Apex impression, right? Like, he's just doing so much damage here. And you can see that Gamer Legion is stuck. This is not where they want to be at this point in the round, but they did not expect this sort of an opening, this sort of a setup from Na'Vi. They expected maybe just to go fighting, they're going to push them back and be able to maybe explode and beat. But Na'Vi again had 3 defenders, tons of utility. They win out the banana fight, and then just clean up again when they one more time. These are some of the mind games we get into from a coach's perspective as well. I've had situations where we're losing or a couple of rounds struggling with, let's say, B or Mirage, then you take the timeout and you say, we're going to play 4A this round because they expect us to change and then we'll go back, right? So there's always like back and forth with this, and Navi just had great preparation. I think they had did a really good job of reading game region.
It's such a good point as well. So you got wasted during that timeout as well. Like, you know the mind games are going to be wild. I do want to just specify giving some flowers to him. Wonderful. I mean, Chad made a point during this. He felt like just eye test wise, Wonderful's had enough to would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think he's finding more stability. We saw during the major in Budapest what Wonderful could do at his A game and how much of an impact he's going to have for Navi when he's playing his best brand of Counter-Strike. I think he's also up the level naturally with the AWP, but he's also with the rifle as well. On a map like Inferno, we see the rifle a bit more often than we used to, and he finds more and more impact. So, if anything, we knew how well Wonderful can play. We just didn't see it often enough. At certain times, in certain tournaments, he was the one being pointed out saying you're not delivering enough. I think as a reason, he's been very consistent, and he's a big part of the reason as not only why his individual form is obtained, but also why Navi as a team is getting better.
Him and Makaze, right? We mentioned both of them as players who improved, in the last couple of tournaments, and you can see the immediate impact it has on the results and the performance of Navi.
100%, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Makaze, and guess who's waiting next? Ancient. That is his playground. Absolutely loves that map. He's putting up insane stats on it too. Does it feel like this one is going to be going very handful throughout this game? Is there anything Game Legion?
Well, I think we talked about how they like to approach B-side Game Legion. Ancient lends itself more to that style a little bit than Inferno does. I know Inferno was their map pick, but their game plan really didn't work. So their silver lining is their map will overlap to some extent, right? But they play the same maps. So they're able to maybe get a slightly better start, right? Navi on the back foot. Navi's always going to be great done around. So if you can put a hit on their economy and make them play with worse equipment and get a couple of vehicles in there like that.
That's the irony. I very much agree. I think you have to keep up the pace on a map like Ancient. You have to play fast against Navi. You have to test whether or not Makaze is on one of his games, so to speak, but he's going to shut down middle beginning. And it's really important to be tested at times. I think he's one of the players that does so well with his utility that in terms of his, sometimes lacking, I guess, individual output or abilities, he kind of covers for that by playing smart. But